For any gamer in their 20s, the 2000s were your jam. Sure, the 90s themselves might have given us everything from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 to Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina of Time, but it was the 2000s that spanned multiple console generations, resulting in all sorts of uber shiny graphical and gameplay advances that shaped the industry as we know it today. The games included here span hidden gems to unabashed classics, legendary titles that spawned a string of sequels, and one-offs that always deserved the spotlight more than the rest. To make this selection process harder and to promote a wider set of games, only one title from each respective franchise can take a slot. It avoids the likes of GTA or Metal Gear taking up entire chunks of the list, and you can debate it out in the comments if I got the best choices for each one. Some honorable mentions include Spider-Man on PS1, Final Fantasy X, SSX Tricky, Jak 2 Renegade, and Super Mario Galaxy. But with all that in mind, I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 20 best video games of the 2000s. Number 20, Gears of War 2. With Gears 2, Epic took the original game's combat, added Mortal Kombat finishes on downed enemies, and topped all that off with a revolutionary horde mode, seeing you fight waves upon waves of enemies in various locations. Thanks to the Unreal Engine letting you blow the Locust into chunks with all sorts of industrialized dystopian weaponry, there's quite simply nothing as enjoyable when it comes to third-person combat as tossing a grenade into a pack of enemies only to run your chainsaw-mounted gun through any survivors. Absolute blood-drenched bliss. Number 19, Manhunt. Manhunt might be thought of as a big old gore fest, but Rockstar created one of the finest tales of a character turning the tables on their oppressors ever told. You start out scrabbling to survive in the murky streets of Carter City, stabbing and suffocating with shards of glass and plastic bags. But once you've tracked down the house of mastermind Lionel Starkweather and got your hands on some firearms, there's a poignant shift in the game's dynamics. Now you become the hunter, and suddenly you're baiting enemies into your own kill boxes, delivering swift and gory retribution to the man himself when the chance presents itself. Number 18, Shadow of the Colossus. Game logic says if you have a sword and a princess needs saving, you best get to taking out any enemies in your way. Something will come of it, right? Well, yes and no. The end result for Shadow of the Colossus is best experienced for yourself, but the feeling you get is something so rarely perfected in gaming: remorse. The battles against the Colossi themselves are absolutely outstanding, the majesty of each encounter having various standout moments in its own way, but there's always something that feels just that little bit off. There's an indescribably serene ebb and flow to the overall feel of Shadow of the Colossus that only Team Ico have ever managed to deliver. Hopping onto your horse and exploring this world and its creatures is one of the most unique experiences ever put to code, and I kinda don't want to spoil anything, just because if there's anybody out there who hasn't played it yet, you really should get on that. Number 17, Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. For the second Uncharted, writing duo Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley actually added a sense of frailty to Drake's actions. They cemented the character as someone who's scrappy yet dependable, molding his heart into one that we could relate to and love no matter where the story would take him. The series' multi-leveled third-person combat, out-of-nowhere melee attacks, and desperation-filled grenade tosses all make Uncharted 2 play like the embodiment of its character's own sensibilities, something that makes this second installment stand the test of time like no other. Number 16, Half-Life 2. Gordon Freeman going up against the insidious human harvesting combine is a literal blast, but it's Valve's storytelling methods that should be highlighted alongside. Reframing the very idea of a cutscene by having them play out all around you, with awesome acting performances and a script that actually knew how to handle a silent protagonist. Looking at you, Metro Exodus, Half-Life 2 moves at a perfect clip. The best thing looking back now, though, is how a potent mix of physics experimentation and tactile shooting allowed for a sense of playfulness that's all but died out across the industry. Half-Life 2 puts the spotlight on genuine innovation, and that's a mentality we very rarely see. Number 15, Fallout 3. Bethesda's crowning achievement of the 2000s, to this day fans are still replaying Fallout 3 to discover every detail. Throw in the VAT system pausing action to allocate where you'd like to target your enemies, and Bethesda's first foray into the franchise had the perfect combination of the older game's turn-taking nature with more modern movement. It might have that trademark level of Bethesda jank, but when the city of Boston is so expansive, the options for your combat so varied, and the moral quandaries you'll come across so impactful, it makes for one hell of an installment from one of the greatest studios of all time. Number 14, Assassin's Creed 2. After a very 7 out of 10 first installment, Ubisoft were hungry to please with Assassin's Creed 2, taking on board all criticisms and creating the swagger-happy Ezio Auditore de Firenze as a lovable Italian Renaissance man, giving you a simple-sounding revenge arc to kick things off. You could pull off double kills, chain attacks together between enemy guards, leap greater vertical distances. All of this was set in sun-dossed Italy, meaning that even the look of watching it all come together felt incredible. I'm totally gonna say Assassin's Creed peaked with Assassin's Creed 2, and you can argue that out down in the comments. Number 13, Max Payne. Developed in tandem between Remedy and Rockstar, Max Payne as both a character and game was dripping with film noir tributes, something that, thanks to it being gaming's first hyper-stylized shooter, became the forebear for every slow-motion blaster since. All that's without saying just how incredibly satisfying it was to enter into a room of gangsters, dodge hundreds of bullets in one epic motion whilst filling them all full of lead. The graceful animation dropping all bodies in unison as only you emerge victorious. I love Max Payne. Number 12, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is still one of the best looking games of all time, with the tightest stealth mechanics in gaming history. For this third installment, it was the most robust and feature-packed iteration yet. Ubisoft introduced kill/knockout animations based on context, so no matter where you were sneaking up on a guy, hanging off a cliff, or dangling from the ceiling, you could choose whether or not to dispatch them with a swift throat slice or a stunning blow to the head. It streamlined gameplay massively, whilst also kicking out some of the best level designs the series has ever seen. Number 11, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Call of Duty might have turned into a bit of a running joke in terms of just how much money it makes every single day, but Infinity Ward's innovative take on both multiplayer and the pace of a first-person shooter campaign were revolutionary. Seriously, name one first-person shooter since Modern Warfare that's used something other than the left trigger aim, right trigger shoot control scheme. You can't. Saying nothing of a multiplayer feel that many still say is the best in the business, there's nothing as beat-for-beat entertaining as Modern Warfare 1's Hollywood-besting campaign. It's absolutely essential regardless of whether you love first-person shooters or not. It's just that good. Number 10, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. People outright hated Wind Waker back at launch. That same brand of make Zelda serious, the same people that came back for the Link's Awakening remake. But this 10th installment was like some gorgeously rendered, playable fairy tale twist on a formula that for me was always begging to be done in that way anyway. Fans can point to Majora's Mask as having the most expansive set of abilities, or Ocarina of Time for being the first time they played a more free-form Zelda in 3D at all, but when it comes to exuding pure whimsical charm throughout, Wind Waker is a goddamn delight. Number 9, Shadow Complex. Shadow Complex has always been one of the best Metroidvanias of them all, its unique hook being to render side-scrolling shooting in 3D, meaning you can tackle enemies in both the fore and background simultaneously. Now, the best Metroidvanias have your character kitted out like an uber badass by the end, and the moment you realized you'd come from t-shirt and jeans everyman to robo-suited machine gun expert with punches that can send guys careening off cliff sides was a sense of reward only few in the genre have ever matched. Number 8, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Picking just one Metal Gear Solid out of the 3 that came across the 2000s is no easy task, but Metal Gear Solid 3 advanced the franchise's core gameplay, whilst Hideo Kojima wrote a career-best story. Of course, all the craziness he's known for is here in abundance too. The opening credits are a massive tribute to James Bond, there's a boss fight of sorts with a gigantic ladder, and a host of enemy characters range from one being made of hornets to another so old and decrepit he can photosynthesize. Because video games. It's Metal Gear as all hell, but Kojima Productions as a creative force arguably turned out their best work with Snake Eater, and it's ludicrously enjoyable in the best way possible. Number 7, Mass Effect. Mass Effect took things to an entirely new level of immersion through character portrayals, branching narratives, and the feel of an entire galaxy at your fingertips. Pitting you as a customizable Captain Shepard aboard the Normandy, BioWare gave birth to one of the finest mythologies I've ever experienced. One fraught with intense race relations, pitting you as the illegal alien for a change. It will be the second Mass Effect that really nailed everything the team were going for first time around, but this landmark installment remains the only sci-fi masterwork epic enough to easily hang with the likes of Star Trek, Star Wars, or anything else you can throw at it. This is the benchmark for sci-fi across all of gaming. Number 6, Batman Arkham Asylum. The game that set the industry standard for close quarters combat, Rocksteady's rhythmic attacks, counters, dodges, and stuns felt powerfully kinetic to bust out. Production-wise, Warner Bros. Gave Rocksteady some suitable financial clout, which they used to recruit Batman animated series cast Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as Joker. Everything played better than any of us expected, and Batman himself had a character model befitting of artist Frank Miller's heft and Jim Lee's definition, letting you move him with an unprecedented feel of precision regardless of whether you were going fist to fist or skulking from the shadows. No game had ever let you genuinely feel like Batman quite as perfectly as this, and it's a landmark point that not only set the bar for all future superhero games, but third-person combat in gaming overall. Number 5, Halo 2. The first Halo might have brought about regenerating health, 2-slot weapon inventories, and that silent cartographer level, but it was the second that took us all online, had one of the best campaigns in the series, and really set about establishing Halo as a console heavyweight in the pantheon of first-person shooters. Jumps were floaty, melee attacks meaty and tactile, and Halo's lore was fleshed out in all the right ways. The whole thing ended on a cliffhanger that millions got more than annoyed by, but the ride Halo 2 took us all on remains one of Bungie's most important releases as a developer. Plus, that bit where you're taking down a scarab with a rocket launcher as Millennium Mix plays in the background, that is my heaven. Number 4, Bully. With Rockstar having perfected their open-world game engine by the time Bully came around, it let them focus on the presentation of everything instead. That meant even more dialogue for our pugnacious protagonist Jimmy Hopkins, a score that connoted the most mischievous parts of Harry Potter, and a fully interactive schoolyard hierarchy to overcome. Bully's appeal as a high school escapist fantasy gave us all a context we were immediately familiar with, something the GTA series could never truly do, providing you aren't a mass-murdering psychopath anyway. It meant we could reapply Rockstar's now iconic formula to an entirely new and unique setup, one that was positively dripping in charm, character moments, and hilarious dialogue. Number 3, Resident Evil 4. With one floppy-haired character, a shotgun, and a seemingly abandoned Spanish village, Capcom rewrote the rulebook on survival horror all over again. Design was led by the genius mind of Shinji Mikami, who chose to get you right down in amongst the action, ramping up the gunplay aspect of the series that was, until this point, quite literally hit and miss. The game does go off the rails in a really enjoyable way in the second half too, combining sprinting zombies who are also infected citizens with all manner of weapons, a plot that was more enjoyably action-oriented than before, and a good smattering of hulking creatures to take down along the way. The first time you feel that shotgun kick, though, it's enough to be a defining moment of the decade itself. Number 2, Bioshock. The game that changed everything about how we consume the medium itself. Why are you doing what you're doing? What roles do mission givers have, and how can that affect the experience? Bioshock tackled all these issues overtly and through a metatextual connection to the player, a certain midpoint reveal being one of the most shocking, utterly unexpected, and incredibly memorable of all time. If you've somehow not got round to playing this inaugural installment, I'll not spoil the particulars. Ken Levine's vision for an underwater breakaway utopia gone sour is one bursting with personality and dark agendas, some only the most intrepid of secret hunting gamers will uncover, making it a masterclass in game design, storytelling, and arcadey fun combat. Number 1, Grand Theft Auto 3. One of the most influential games of all time, GTA 3 is digital anarchy, something that works best when the shackles are off and you're free to do as you please. See that supercar locked up inside a showroom? Smash the glass and take it. A mission with a car making a getaway? Put one of your own in the way before triggering it, and then you can hop out and take a rocket launcher to their face. GTA 3 was a world you could essentially live in, replete with a city design everyone who played has memorized. It's the perfect video game playground and an exemplary execution of a formula that would change gaming history. And that's my list. Let me know down in the comments below what your single pick for the best game of the 2000s is. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.